In this video, I'll show you how to solve the ALEKS problem called identifying acids and bases by their chemical formula. To help you solve this problem, you're going to want to have a periodic table handy, and I do recommend using ALEKS's periodic table because of the way that it color codes metals versus nonmetals. That's going to be helpful in this problem. In this problem, we have 4 different compounds. We're being asked to identify all of the different ways that these 4 compounds could be classified: ionic, molecular, acidic, or basic. And I want to start off by pointing out that for every single one of these compounds, you are definitely going to choose one of these options. It is either going to be ionic or molecular. So I'm going to write here that you are always going to pick one of these options, and it's only one. So a compound is either, each one of these compounds is either ionic or it is molecular, but it's never going to be both. So you're not going to choose both. That's going to be wrong no matter what. You're always going to pick one of these. Now for the acid and base, this is a maybe. Now you're not going to always, for some of these substances, they are not going to be an acid and they're also not going to be a base. So there'll be some situations where you are not going to be choosing an acid or a base. But if you do, you again are only going to pick one of these. So there's no situation where a compound is both an acid and a base. It is either an acid or a base, or it's either an acid or a base, or it's not either one of them. So let's talk a little bit about our definitions. The definition, the way that you're going to identify an ionic compound is that it is going to be something that contains both a metal atom, at least one, and a non-metal atom, and that's why the periodic table is handy. If it is not ionic, then it is molecular, but we can define that as well. A molecular compound is one that contains only nonmetals. So let's take a look at our first molecule. I have H3PO4. What we're going to do is find those atoms on the periodic table: hydrogen, phosphorus, and oxygen, all nonmetals. That means that this is molecular. I said H3PO4, but I see it's H3PO3. So it is molecular. We're going to come back to the acid-base definitions later. My next one that I have is H2SO4. That is, I've already got the hydrogen circled. There is the sulfur, H2SO4. That one is also molecular. It is made up of only nonmetals. Now I have BaOH2. Let's find those atoms. Barium is right here. There's a metal. There's oxygen, there's hydrogen, so there's nonmetals. So this is an ionic compound. It contains metal and nonmetal. Last but not least, I have HBr. Here's the hydrogen, and here's bromine, nonmetal, so that makes this molecular. Now, moving on to the next classification, acid versus base. Let's start with, I'm going to get the periodic table out of the way because we don't need it anymore. Let's start with the classification or the definition of a base. This is a really narrow definition, but this is a definition that works for this ALEKS problem. A base is going to be something that has an OH group in the formula. Now, we're not looking for something that has hydrogens and oxygens. It specifically needs to have an OH in that order. Could be in parentheses, or it could be all by itself. Like it could be like this, or it could be NaOH, but we are looking specifically for the OH pattern. So for the first molecule, I have oxygens and I have hydrogens, but I don't have the OH pattern. Same with the next one. I have oxygens and hydrogens, but I don't have the OH pattern. Here is exactly what I'm talking about. That is a base. Now, once you've picked one of these options, acid or base, it can't be the other one. So I know that I am done with BaOH. Like I've chosen everything that I can choose for that molecule. And again, I want to say one more time that this is a really narrow definition. This is not a really comprehensive definition of a base. So this definition is not always going to work, but it's going to work for this ALEKS problem. An acid, I'm going to give you also a very narrow definition, is one that the formula starts with hydrogen. And again, that's another super narrow definition. It is not going to always work, but it's going to work for this ALEKS problem. So what do I mean by that? The hydrogen is the first thing in the formula. Those are all acids.